We hope we're going to get to all of your questions live, and if we don't, we're going to try our best to respond to them by email later today. And guess what? Our good friend over at Facebook, they're giving away an awesome prize today on the webinar. Only one of you lucky webinar attendees is going to win a Facebook swag bag filled with all kinds of Facebook awesomeness, including a Yeti tumbler and t-shirts and so much more. This sweet, sweet prize is valued at over $200. You have to be on the live broadcast to win it, though, so stay tuned, and you could be the one winning this amazing prize today. Also, at the conclusion of this webinar, you're going to get a short survey. So fill it out. We're always looking for quality feedback from our audience, and we want to hear what you have to say about today's presentation. And hey, do you tweet much? We hope you do. We'd love to see what you have to say about today's show. So please tag us in it. You can use hashtag DealerOnWebby. I'm at Eliana Raggio, and like we said earlier, you can also follow Philip Rather at Philip Rather. We look forward to seeing what you're saying. All right, everyone, let's get started. Let's listen in as an expert from Facebook shares what dealers need to know for 2018. Hello, Mr. Rather. How are you, sir?
I'm so good, Eliana. I just hope I can keep up with your energy here through this presentation because it's really amazing. I'm really happy to be here. Just a little bit more about me. I manage the Tier 2 and Tier 3 automotive teams here at Facebook. That role includes a lot of product development and listening to the dealer community and the agency partners that we work with to build all of the right stuff. And I know that there's a varying degree of familiarness with Facebook on the line today. So what we've decided to do is sort of give some of the front load some of the trends about what's going on in mobile and how Facebook fits into that, and potentially refine the way that you might view the platform. And then towards the end, I'm going to go through a lot of the really interesting things that we're working on for 2018 so that you know what you need to do foundationally today and what's coming down the pipe for later on. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started.
You have so much to get through. Yeah, tell them what we're going to be learning about.
Yeah, so the objectives here are learn why persistent identity is critical to marketing. Discuss the way mobile adoption is shaping media. We all know that that's happening very fast from our own personal usage of our phones. How to map Facebook to business objectives versus what I think has historically been something that's more social oriented, if you will. A sneak peek into 2018 products and the next frontier after that. We'll go through the giveaway. I want to make sure I have plenty of times for Q&A because that always tends to be one of the hot parts. So, just to level set this a little bit, I always ask the question, because we talk about Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat as social media. If you ever thought about what social actually means, if you look at the history of the way that the internet was actually brought to be, it started out in academic institutions where those universities were sharing documents back and forth that were very large. And so even inherently at the very beginning, it was social in the sense that two people were communicating and they were sending files over that. It was actually social even well beyond that. I don't know if you guys remember kind of the big bulletin board system that was more pervasive in the first decade, in the 2000s, but we already had social, if you think about it. These were forums where you could go and talk about, comparison and shopping and parts and fixing cars and so on. If you look at this person's name that I've highlighted here, it's Antelope. Right. Well, I'm pretty sure that's not the God-given name to this particular human being. And people have been using aliases, but again, interacting in a communication forum early on. And again, I just want to level set that social is something that has been part of the internet since day one. So when we talk about social, what we're really talking about is persistent identity. You all know that when you log into Facebook, you are logged in on your laptop, your desktop computer, you're logged in on your phone, your tablet, and soon to be you'll be logged in on your television as well, and through many other devices. So if you think about this, which is unlike the historical way that we track people on desktop and on mobile, it's been using cookies. Well, Facebook, because you are that person and I am that person, I'm Philip Rather on all of these different devices, which is really imperative in a world of mobile where we might have many devices. It's even more imperative when you actually look at the car shopping process, because people, as you well know, you've seen much of the research, are using all sorts of different devices over this very long process, right? You only buy a car once every 6 and 7 years, and you might be in market or near market for an extended period of time. So not having the ability to track people across the devices that they actually use, it becomes very difficult to understand if your media is actually working. And it's even more difficult to make sure you're targeting the right people. It ends up with a lot of waste. If you're targeting people who are the wrong people, or you've already got somebody who's bought a car and you don't need to target them anymore, there's lots of ways that waste sort of steps in there. But on Facebook, we actually, again, are connected through that process, and I give you the ability to target people across devices very, very seamlessly to where they are more likely to take an action and be more comfortable. So this is not like picking a bunch of, I'm going to put this ad on mobile and I'm going to put this ad on desktop, although you can certainly do that. It's as simple as just checking a box saying, I want this ad to go to the place where the customers that are in market and most important to me are going to engage with my brand. So the one thing you can take away here foundationally is that if you think about social, really look at it as persistent identity, and we'll talk about how that actually impacts doing really good marketing. So a lot of people talk about the shift to mobile and that it's happening. Guess what? It's actually already happened. And if you look at your own day-to-day use of your phone, you'll realize you're in the hundreds of times that you're actually engaging with that. And even if you're watching a television, you're probably taking a look at your phone while that's happening. In fact, 87% of people are actually using a second device while they're watching TV. So the TV is large, it has sight, sound, and motion, but it's also got a DVR where people are skipping through many of the commercials that they look at. And it's also very likely, if they're not skipping through that commercial, they're looking down on their phone at the same time. So this is where we get in this multi-channel situation where you've got people using different devices. And of course, we're working hard to try to make that TV integrated as well to give you a personalized experience there. Fortunately, we don't cover everything when it comes down to broadcast television. But obviously, I don't think that we're going to be sending TV out through cable or satellites forever. And then a lot of this is going to come through to the internet, of which Facebook will play a big part. Here's another really interesting thing on time. So we are spending 5 hours and consuming 7 hours of media content. How could that possibly be? Again, you're using 2 devices at one time. So we're literally consuming more media in hours than the time that we're spending consuming it. More people have a cell phone than have a toothbrush. It's startling, but it's the world that we live in now. And, again, when you think about something like this, this is the greatest marketing opportunity that has ever been presented to us. It is not going to happen. It is already happening. And I think that one of the issues is we just have not been prepared for how fast it's actually happened. If you look at the current world's population, we're about 7.5 billion people, and there are 7.9 billion, people or mobile devices out there. So we actually have more active mobile devices than we have human beings. Again, just a testament to this is far more pervasive. It's not an emerging opportunity. It's right in front of us. There's also 3 million apps. That's a ton of apps. I've got probably 27, 30. I think that's the average. They're layers deep in there. And when you think about some of the things like, downloading an application from a car dealership or even from a shopping site, it's so infrequent that you buy the car that even if that app lives on your phone, it's probably not something that you're using all that often. I would say with the dealership, potentially there's opportunity to do more in the service space through an application. You're starting to see manufacturers using that. I actually just recently bought a car, and while I was in there, I downloaded an app and I can start my car from it. I can get service appointments. So I think there's some progress being made at the tier 1 level. But, the main point here is that with 3 million apps out there, it's very difficult to get any sort of, mind share in those by building your own application. So we encourage dealerships not to bother with building applications, to really sort of wait and see what that's going to look like with car manufacturers. Well, now, when you get to that, the issue is even with those 3.1 million apps, I think is the current number, definitely more than 3 million today, 75% of time is spent in just 4 applications. So the concentration of usage is really into just a few applications. And while that makes it more difficult for you to make your own application important to a consumer on a day-to-day basis, it also allows you to leverage the embedded users of other applications. Now, those 4 applications that we referenced there for 75 time spent happen to be all under one roof here. So you've got Facebook, WhatsApp, which is a chat application for those of you that are not aware. It's really more prominent in the rest of the world. You've got Messenger, which many of you use, and we're going to talk a little bit about later on how that is going to become the next platform, and in my opinion, bigger than Facebook. The app you currently use today with your newsfeed, it will be bigger than that. And then, of course, we have Instagram, which is just the hottest app on the planet with regards to something of that size that's bringing in eyeballs and time spent. So again, 3 million apps, but 75% of time spent in applications can be narrowed down to just a small group, and that gives you an opportunity. Now, this happened really, really fast, right? I don't know how many of you were familiar with Facebook's IPO, but at that point in time in 2012, I was here, and it was, everything was going great. We were on top of the world. Everybody wanted to talk about Facebook. What we were doing, though, is we had no real revenue for mobile, and as you can see here in the S1 filing, we want to grow the mobile use, but we currently doesn't generate any meaningful revenue. We were also building applications not in the current native iOS and Android fashion. We were actually betting on a technology called HTML5, which ended up being premature and just not there. So we had our own struggles with this shift to mobile, and by no means am I here to preach today about how you're not doing it right. It is certainly something that is affecting every single industry that we see, from the largest companies to the smallest companies. Every single vertical is really struggling with, what does this mean to my business? And so while there are problems with it that it will create and adjustments you need to make, again, it is the biggest shift in the way business has been done in a century, and has extremely positive impacts for your business when done properly. I think one of the reasons why that is because technology is accelerating at a pace faster than human adaptability can actually deal with. And so just like Facebook sort of struggled with how quick the technology was moving, I think we're finding that out there in the dealer community, there are many, many progressive dealers, doing lots of good things. And many of our partners, who I know are also on the phone, that work with us, are building technology to sort of catch up to this. But in general, this is a sort of an unprecedented time in history where we're struggling to keep up with how fast technology is coming out. And I believe there's more technology available to us, like autonomous vehicles, that are just not necessarily there, out there right now, because the adaptability of laws and things that we have to do are a little bit behind. You can actually see that play itself out in how media spend is being done across the board here too. So if you look at print, radio, TV, internet, not so much, and certainly not in mobile. If you look at the time spent versus the ad spend against those, you can see some glaring issues. So 4% of time spent reading print, but 18% of ad dollars going towards it. Whereas mobile, again, setting the stage is one of the greatest opportunities ever. You've got 24% of time spent with only 8% of media going towards it. So what this means beyond time, beyond the fact that it's time to actually start doing this, is that on Facebook, it's still relatively cheap, right? If you've got a less demand compared to how much supply there is, you're going to end up with cheap prices. And then that in effect turns into really good ROI for your brand. Gary Vaynerchuk, who many of you might know, is a big public speaker and owns a company called VaynerMedia, talks about when he got started with his family's wine business, he was able to buy the word wine on Google for 5 cents. Right? Imagine what you could do today. You could start a business from absolutely nothing if those were the types of economics involved. Now, I'm not saying that your clicks will be 5 cents on Facebook, but it's still undervalued compared to what you would actually get out of it. So this is an opportunity actually now to get a little bit ahead of the game. And while you're trying to figure out your strategies, be doing it in an economically advantageous position. And this stuff actually works. So if you look at what's influencing store purchases, and that is what unique is about auto. What I love working about is it's not like e-commerce. That's actually pretty straightforward. People buy things online. You just try to figure out what had the most influence to make them do that purchase, but the loop is closed, right? You know that they do that transaction because they put their credit card in. Well, purchasing a car is much higher consideration, lower frequency. And, it's going to be more difficult to actually understand that. Well, we do a lot of research. This is some with Deloitte that we've done that shows that 56% of purchases that are made in a store, which by the way, 90% of all purchases are still made in a store, but 56% of those were influenced by digital, and 2/3 of those were mobile interactions. So again, you are going to influence what happens in the real world by using digital media, and even more so, you're going to do it by using mobile media. It's really interesting what's happened to the path to purchase. I think some of the segments that we have for targeting talk about 0 to 6 months or 0 to a year, but the reality is that 52% of people of all ages only took 1 month to purchase. Again, I recently bought a car. I'd been thinking about some things. I'd been looking through some things for maybe 6 months to a year. But once I decided I was going to do it, it took almost no time, actually within 2 weeks to buy that car. And if you look at the newer generations of millennials, of Gen X, and then, of boomers, you're starting to see that the younger are actually taking even less time. So 38% of millennials only took 1 week to purchase. So if these things are happening and they're happening so fast, you really don't have the luxury to wait around and serve them a television ad or a newspaper ad or a magazine ad once every month. You have to be where they are every single day, and that is on their phone. It's a very distracted group of people as well. So the average times a day that someone clicks, taps, swipes, or interfaces with their phone is over 2,500. There's 8 billion times that Americans are collectively checking their phone every single day, right? So this is stuff that you could probably all imagine, just macro trends. Back in 2000, we thought that we had done some testing, not us ourselves, but we dug up some testing that showed that the attention span of the average person was 12 seconds. By 2013, it had dropped to 8 seconds. And this today on Generation Z, we're talking about 2.8 seconds.
Are you kidding?
In order to,
That's almost
in order to
nothing.
get somebody, we talk about the Facebook newsfeed and stopping the thumb, right? You have to have something, and we'll get to creative in a minute. You've got to get people to stop their thumb and look at what it is that's in front of them. Now, that's one part creative. The other part is being there in the first place. So you have a very, very distracted group of people who are always on the device, and it is your job to figure out how to get them to stop. And the first thing you got to do is you got to find the right people. But one of the things I wanted to sort of level set here is that, again, Facebook is a social network. You saw the movie, as off as it might have been. It was an entertaining film, and it was called The Social Network. And that's fine. It is a network of people. We have terms like the social graph and the business graph, and we connect all sorts of people. But again, the internet has always been about connecting people. The biggest thing that you could take away from today, if nothing else, is that this is a media platform, plain and simple. It is not going to take cats in a hats on a bike to put some silly picture out there, get a bunch of fans that are going to engage with it and share with it, and somehow they're going to end up in buying a car from you. It's just media. If you look at it like that, you'll be great. And beyond that, 93% of the traffic is on mobile. If you look at our earnings reports as they come out, 90% or so roughly is where our revenue is coming from, is from mobile. So this is a full-blown mobile media company that is not just one application. It is all those other applications that I showed you earlier, which are taking up about 75% of the time in apps. They are 2 billion, and I think it's actually 2.1 maybe right now. People use Facebook around the world each month. 1.2 are on WhatsApp each month, 1.2 on Messenger, and 800 million on Instagram. These are unprecedented numbers of usage, and if you see why our mission for Mark Zuckerberg is to connect the world and bring people closer together, that's exactly why, and we actually have the scale to do that. Here's something even more startling. This is a slide we use on stage a lot, and it's usually the one we're like, wow. So if you look at this, you'll see some many familiar faces and great companies in their own respect. Those are representative, those circles, of how much time people are spending using those applications. Facebook and Instagram are more than 20% of time spent on mobile and larger than all of those combined. And if you add in our audience network, which is applications, you guys have probably seen whenever you log into an app, it'll give you a chance to use Facebook as your authentication so that you don't have to go and fill out all of this information to get access to the app. Well, those companies actually serve advertising within their applications as well that are based on our targeting, adding another 6% of time spent on mobile. So more than 1 in 5 minutes, and in this case, if you count audience networks, more than 4 minutes of time spent on all mobile devices doing any task or objective at all is spent on Facebook or Instagram. So again, if you're thinking about what this actually means, like because of the evolution of the product and what Facebook's capabilities were early on, and one of the issues is a lot of people are still out there selling to car dealers this way, were really around social objectives. And it was tough to figure out what the ROI was, right? Like, what's the value of a like or of a share of an engagement? We tried to give some metrics around this is what your reach is, and you've got a quality score on your content. So all that's really really important, I would say, as part of our evolution, oftentimes it may be sold to you as, we're going to get you a bunch of fans, or we're going to manage your posting for you, or this is part of a reputation management, practice that we actually have. But at Facebook, and we've done as best as we possibly can, given the scale of the community selling these types of products out there, is to say, please, when you go to car dealerships, sell them something that is not the social objectives on the left. Go in there and try, just like we would with any other media, as to what are your business objectives. They can be reach to your local community and awareness of your dealership. They can be, online conversions, whether it be leads or looking at vehicle detail pages, or looking at a map to find out where the dealership is. And finally, sales. I mean, ultimately, what we would like to get to as Facebook is to be held accountable to car sales, which, outside of lead generation, no one in the world is doing. So there's some measurement undertakings that we're going, particularly more with an OEM level or co-op programs where we have better scale. It's very difficult to show lift in sales at an individual dealership. But we know that they happen, and certain things like leads and messenger chats and things like that can help you close that loop. But just know that we're working to make this much simpler to understand the effect of Facebook on your business objectives, and sort of leave behind this social stuff that has pervaded the narrative for the last several years. So what does a car dealership want to do? Well, they want their brand to be known in the community. Car dealerships are sort of notorious for giving back to the community, being involved at the Little League, having events, and all those types of things are very important to understand that this car dealership is here, and this car dealership is a good and a trusting one that I should go and give my business. Then, of course, it's the people that are in market. You want to be in front of them because they're the ones that are going to buy the cars, and they're going to buy them most frequently. We'll talk a little bit about how you actually find those people. In addition, some of the drawbacks of only focusing on those people. And so in market's a big topic, and the thing that most car dealerships go right to, I think they want to move, metal from the lot, and which is understandable. It's only part of the process here. And then the last part, and I think is going to become more and more important as time goes on, which is service. If you look at some of the defection rates, the commoditization of vehicles, parity amongst the things that, the features of each individual vehicle, not to mention some of the overarching macro trends, which are coming towards vehicle, ride sharing of vehicles, vehicle subscription services. I believe that service and loyalty and remaining it closer with your customers is more important than ever. And a lot of that money is in, in direct mail now, which, at least in my house, gets thrown in the garbage or to the recycling bin pretty quickly. So I think service is something which is one of the most underpenetrated areas that dealers can use, and I've got some case studies to show where that's been done effectively. So what happened, right? How did we get from these social objectives to business objectives? When we started matching data in a privacy safe fashion, anonymized, with third-party data sources as well as first-party data sources, we were able to go, who are the people that we know are in market and how do we find them on Facebook? And we've done this better than just about anybody, much faster than anyone else has done. If you look at some of the other big media players in digital, they're starting to use things like email address, phone number, home address to find people on Facebook who have given that information up, again, in an anonymized way. And you can imagine all of the incredible things you could do if you could match data and find them on Facebook, which is why we call Facebook a media platform, but also the world's greatest CRM platform. So finding customers and keeping customers. Here's some of the ways that data could actually work. So you've got first-party data. This could come from your CRM. It could come from your DMS, which I've got a case study on in a minute. And of course, it could come from pixeling your website. You've got third-party data. These are the axioms. It says Datalogix here, which was acquired by Oracle, who uses Polk Data, Epsilon, big data brokerage warehouses that integrate with us and allow you to find customers who are in market, who are owners of particular vehicles. And so the third-party data was really the first thing that we did that allowed customers to go in and find people that were important to them and get the message in front of the right person. Then, of course, you have Facebook data, and this is always been the bread and butter with regards to the things that we had that made us super unique. But when you combine Facebook data with, say, a third-party or first-party data, now you're talking about personas, right? If I knew that somebody was in market for a car because they haven't, Polk says they haven't bought a car in 5 years and they're exhibiting all these other sort of behaviors that say this person's in market for a car, and then you've put behavior and interest on top of it, you could give creative to someone, say, a mother who's got small children who wants to buy a minivan, and that message should be really more around safety than if she was buying a Tahoe or something like that, and maybe didn't have children, and it would be a different use case altogether. So the data part is what changed the game and has made this the most hyper-targeted system that you can really find out there. So a very simple use case. If you guys are not doing retargeting across the entire web, you really should be. It's sort of a no-brainer. Somebody visits your website, we find them on Facebook, and we serve them an ad. Now, what's different here than everywhere else, because retargeting is, again, buy every bit of it that you possibly can, to the point where it's, diminishing return, is that we are really the only platform in the world that can do this cross-platform. So if somebody sees your ad on your mobile website, we can retarget them on desktop based on whether they're more likely to convert there. Maybe they want to see larger images of the cars they're looking at. Or if someone is looking at a dealership website, they're actually able to be retargeted on their phone, which we know they're going to be spending most of their time. So this is really critical, and this comes back to that identity layer that I started off with, which is, if you don't have logged in persistent identity and you're just trying to use cookies, they do not track across devices. So this type of media is basically impossible to pull off really anywhere else. And what that leads to is a lot of waste. And waste is one of those things where it's hard to find, but it can be absolutely crippling. When you're spending $600 or $700 in media per car sold, it would make it a hell of a lot easier if you could get that down to $300, and waste is just one part of that. Now, beyond that, you can find people who look like those that are either visiting your website or from your CRM. So in the case of somebody goes and visits, they look at a vehicle detail page view of a particular type of car, you can retarget them and show them that car and others similar to it, but you can also add a lookalike model and find many other people that look like that. So we have millions of attributes that we stack rank in a lookalike model that says this person, from a psychographic and demographic perspective, looks a lot like the people who have just been visiting your website and looking at this particular vehicle. And therefore, that adds a very nice, easy way, because it's the check of a box, to go out and prospect, right? So you have your very tight end market customers who've already viewed your inventory, and then you're able to go and prospect to them by just simply saying, I want to find people that look like them. Now, what's really great now is that Facebook has a lot more signals coming in from around the internet. We've got the majority of dealer websites pixeled in some capacity, lots of other shopping sites, lots of manufacturer sites. I mean, effectively, we're just getting lots of signals. So within that lookalike, we're also able to say these people are exhibiting some behavior of looking at that type of car as well. So this system is based on machine learning. It's getting a lot smarter over time, and just a good way to add scale to an already very effective campaign. We actually did some analysis on this, and what we found was that, in nothing shocking here, is that dealer site retargeting are 16 times more likely to buy than the national baseline of an in-market shopper, or somebody supposed to be inline. So obviously, you're generating at your website level very high intent and good indication that somebody's likely to buy a car. Then we actually tracked many of the shopping websites who are out there providing really great services as well. So if your shopping site is already listing you on that particular portal, it makes sense to find people who are looking at your inventory and follow them on Facebook as well, right? And to continue to stay in front of them. So we found that shopping sites were actually 8 times more likely to buy a car. Really, really great. Still super high and helping you get to the right people. And then we analyzed the Polk data segments, which are managed by Oracle Datalogix, and found that by modeling Department of Motor Vehicles record, along with adding in certain other things like the places that you shop and the types of other products that you buy, like if you shop at Nordstrom's, maybe you fall into a luxury group, that we're able to then go and model that, or Oracle is, and find out, some people that are in market for a car, and those are 2 times more likely to buy. So you really want to start filling that funnel and putting people who are more likely to buy, that get them to visit your website, that you then retarget. And that's how you move somebody from thinking about buying a car to actually engaging with your dealership. And then again, the lookalikes that I just went over on the last slide, because they're gathering all of these psychographic and demographic signals that say this person is likely to buy that type of car, they're also getting behavioral signals to say they're more likely to buy a car right now. So really good data, and just a statement that we're able to find the right people on all of the devices that they're using. But that's not the only way to do this. And I encourage you to think more broadly than just the people who are thinking about or who are exhibiting all this behavior. One of the things that you see in a lot of other types of media is everybody goes towards buying this 10% that you see on the right. I mean, everybody is saying, okay, if they clicked on this, they must be in market, or if they clicked on that, they must be in market. Let's go. And what ends up happening is you've got lots of advertisers bidding on a very small group that drives up the cost. So 4.2 times more costly than some other people in the group. So be wary of only narrowing it down to the people that are showing online intent. A lot of people don't do that. They see an ad, they don't really click on it. You know, we have actually found that clicking is not correlated to sales in any way at all. So just the clicks are not the only thing you should be looking at. If you look at everybody who might be in market for a car, the people who are not taking all those actions are actually cheaper, and there's more of them. So, you know, buying on reach and frequency, making sure that you're you know, buying around the radius of your store to get everybody and envelop that area is really important. I'll show you how that works in a second as well. So there's sort of 4 strategies that, again, if we're mapping back to business objectives, this is how you all operate in order to get people to your store and to buy from you. So why buy here? That's the dealership awareness piece that I was just talking about. We are a good, reputable dealer, and we are in your area. Ready to buy now. So you're exhibiting behavior, or we're making some assumptions that think that you might be in market for a car today. A customer for life. I believe retention and fixed ops is the biggest miss on Facebook, and yet the biggest opportunity. Consider people are there every day. And also, by the way, a dealer profit center, as we all know. And then events. There's a lot of opportunity around events to get people to an event, you know, to pull in talent at events and make these really big deals. And you guys have probably, you know, used events for birthday parties or, you know, New Year's Eve parties or whatever it might be. That's a big, you know, nice feature that sort of taps into the notifications on Facebook. So we'll start with why buy here. Again, you can target from your dealership address anyone within 5 miles, 10 miles, add some layers on top of that for the number of people or the age of the people. And I think we all know that the number of actual, you know, visits to a dealership is really important, that it's gone down, right? I mean, that means that people are showing up extremely well prepared to make the purchase of that particular car. And so with that, with them going down, one, you need to make them aware of, hey, here's where we actually are. So they know when they go do look for the location that they want to go to when they're ready, that you'd be top of mind. And we also want to put all of our inventory in front of them. So I'll get to dynamic ads in a minute, which is sort of something that we just released, and I can give you a little more clarity into how that works. But the bottom line is you got to put the cars in front of them on their phone, and you got to let them know where you are on their phone. So here's how that would work. You know, you go in, we know where your location is, and you do that, and then therefore you send a couple of ads. This one is great. You know, it's just a new family room, basically saying if you come in with your kids, it's going to be okay. We have somewhere where we can they can have some fun while we actually go through the process of doing this. Here's a case study. So from Cashel Chevrolet, they were looking at some of their competitors, figuring out, hey, you know, who is in the same area as a competitor of ours that we can go and talk about some of the good things about our business. They found lots of other different stores around. And then what they did was they wanted to promote the Cashel difference. So free oil changes for life, free tires for life, and a fantastic warranty. And this is, you know, this doesn't necessarily have a call to action in the sense of come sign up for an oil change. It's really just like, hey, we're here and we have a very good offering and you're in our area and you should talk to us. What ended up happening was they delivered over 2,000 visits to the website. The cost per click was well under what you would see for a lot of other display or search, and they sold 23 cars through this. Now, I don't have the cost per car sold here, but according to them, it was well within the, you know, the reasonable range. And just that volume on a Facebook campaign that simply said, hey, here's where we are and here's who we are, again, shows you the power of nothing more than letting people know the geography. We'll get into more specific, like, you know, how do we find end market in just a second. So ready to buy. Some of the things that you can use here are, you know, you obviously want to put your zip codes in. You don't want to be buying media all over town that you can't service or it's unlikely somebody would actually drive to. But we can find, you know, again, modeled information from Polk and Experian, customers that are supposed to be in market within 0 to 3 months or 0 to 6 months. And you can actually also find drivers of owners of other cars. So, you know, you of course have a CRM list that you could upload and say, here are all my owners, but that doesn't necessarily include everybody. If you think about people moving from California to Texas or something like that. They may come with a Toyota Camry, and they want to be serviced by their local Camry dealership, or, you know, if they're in an equity position, buy from their local Camry dealership, or be conquested by a Honda dealership in the area. So being able to find all of the owners of a car in an area outside of your CRM is very simple in Facebook and something that you guys could easily do. Then there's website custom audiences. All that means is we're building a cookie pool of people that have visited particular portions of your site, usually looking at inventory, and then you can go and retarget those customers and then add lookalikes onto it as well. And so, you know, here's one with more, this example of an ad is really more one with a $1,000 appreciation cash, you know, some sort of offer. I'm going to talk about how we're going to automate offers here before long as well. Here's an example of a case study. So, you know, talking about paid search, it's become really, really competitive. My background is in search. I have nothing but great things to say about Google, all the other search engines, but it is very, very competitive. And also, you can't wait for people to come to you in some respects. I mean, search is limited in the sense that only the people that are searching are going to be available to you when so many more people are in market for a car. So what they did is they ran some media. They wanted to take some of the their search dollars, and they ran some media driving traffic to their website. And what they found was it was 2.3 times more conversions than they were getting for the same amount. They increased the website visitors by 24%, and they isolated this out and actually saw 32% in sales from this particular medium versus the others they were looking at. Some other ones here are actually more in lead generation. So Brown and Eagle Pass, they drove a bunch of website visits. They were collecting email leads from their websites. They actually had many new customers come to the actual dealership, so 63% of brand new customers, and they had a 12.5x return on ad spend. That's the number one thing. Did I put $1 in and get $12 out? I think everybody would do that all day long. I know I would. And if I knew there was a sure way to do that in any industry, I might consider going and starting that business. So it's working really well there as well. One more just to show sort of the scale we're working at. So we had lots of really great individual dealers doing good work. Now we're starting to see the big groups out there, like Asbury Automotive. They you know, are a big proponent of ours. They spend time on stage with us as well. They were able to really drop the decrease in the cost per sale compared to that $500 to $600 to $700 per car sold that you hear from various sources. And they sold 10 cars directly from the lead ads that were generated on Facebook. I'll show you what those lead ads look like in a second, but basically it's just a form where people can go and much of their information is already filled in, again, because they're authenticated, which reduces the friction on a phone of typing with sort of fat fingers filling out that lead. But to sell 10 cars for $500, that's pretty good in 4 days. One last one, Cardinale Auto Group. I heard Zmot out there give a shout out earlier. Great partners with us. Actually had them on a panel talking about local businesses and the impact of you know, some of these changing trends in the world on local businesses. These guys had 59 times return on ad spend. They were using Messenger, which I think we'll talk about it in a second. Is just going to be a game changer for automotive, not only in sales but really in service as well. Could potentially end up in vehicles. They had a 93% lower cost per sale than some of the other mediums they work with, and 82% of the people who confirmed an appointment and set that appointment ended up buying a car. So the bottom line is, going back to the stat, if you can get them, pretty well pre-qualified online, giving them the message, showing the value proposition, using cost-effective media, once you get them in the store, that's what you guys do. Lead ads don't sell cars, dealers sell cars, but you got to get them there first, and they have to be pretty well ready to go. And we know they show up more educated today than they have in the past. When we think about like repeat purchases, again, I just think this is one of the biggest things that we're missing here in marketing. And so 43% is going to be based on your brand. Like I had a good, experience with that dealership or with that, that type of car. Some of it is based on fashion, honestly, like, is this car slick and do I want to look good in it? But really the things that make people buy new cars is that they're being influenced by advertising and they're being influenced by some type of loyalty program, both of which we do, right? We run advertising, that's the name of the game over here. But being influenced by a loyalty program are things that simply take a customer list and some sort of offer and call to action that makes them want to, come in for service or whatever it might be. So customers for life, again, you can find Polk owners. That's basically everybody who owns a type of car in your area, or you can upload your CRM and DMS I've got an actually really good DMS case study that's coming up that talks about equity mining. That is one of the biggest things, and effective ways to actually do that type of thing. So, to retain customers for life. So I know you're all familiar with that. If you look at this is a fictional Ford dealership. Now that I look at it, it's one of my colleagues' last names. But do you own this car? Why don't you get an additional $2,000 on top of your trade-in value come in today? Or the message could be something like, trade in now for a newer version, no money down, same payment. Those types of things, if you knew the equity position, would be really good. Here's one that's just using an oil change. Come back in, contact us to schedule an oil change today. When you get them in there, they're just that much more attached to the business, and you potentially have somebody in sales come out and say, would you like to take a look at a new car? Here's an example of how that works. Paragon's the #1 certified pre-owned dealer for Honda in the country. And what they did was they went and they mined their DMS. They found some customers that were in market or that were in an equity position. They said, come in for this oil change for $995. Once they got in the bay, someone approached them and said, hey, would you like to get a new car? That whole spiel I just gave. And what they ended up finding was that there was almost a 50% coupon redemption rate for the actual oil change, right? So they're making money off the oil change in a pretty good fashion there. It was actually 80% cheaper than the direct mail that they were using. They sold 4 used cars, or they took in 4 cars. They actually took those 4 cars, made them CPO, and sold them. So effectively, they ended up selling 8 cars over time for a cost per sale of $79. Again, I think something anyone on the phone would take. And it was a very simple equity mining situation. We're looking for ways to make this more scalable. As many of you know, it's just sort of a difficult situation with the DMS industry as it stands today, but I'm seeing good things, I think, going to happen to make this a lot easier for you folks to do very seamless equity mining or finding customers who haven't had an oil change in 6 months or something like that to get them back into your store. Another one is just going and adding, the CRM plus the Pulp data and bringing them in for oil changes. They reach 75,000 owners, which is just incredible. I think reach is a metric that does not get used very often because you see it in television, you see it in traditional media, newspaper, but you don't see it in digital because, again, they're using cookies and they're not sure if the person behind the screen is me or my daughter, right? But on Facebook, we actually know that we can reach these 75,000 owners in this case. There was 5,000 website visits. They booked 201 service appointments. So some serious scale here. Another one here, same type of thing. They wanted to use offers to reach Acura owners who had brought their vehicle in for service. They had a 221x return on ad spend. Some of these numbers are actually unreal. By the way, all of these case studies are available online. If you just go type in Facebook case studies in Google, you'll be able to sort by automotive and pull any of these down, either for gaining internal momentum for doing this type of thing, or if you're an agency using them in your presentations when a dealership might need some help running the actual media. So 118 offer claims. Again, just big scale here. And what we would suggest you do here is just compare it to direct mail and see which one works better. And last thing is events. I think, this is one of those things where not every dealership is really throwing a bunch of events, but we have an event ad in particular, as you can see here on the right. So you basically star it. It says, I'm going to, it'll send you an alert to remind you of the event. It also tells your friends in the newsfeed that, Philip is interested in this particular event and gives you a little bit of virality to that. But you can do these events by any sort of geographic radius. And then, of course, you can find any of the same targeting that we've gone through in the past here. So that takes care of all the targeting. It shows you what you can do. Again, it's from awareness to end market to loyalty and service. But another thing that you really have to do is again, think about this just as media. Don't try to get too fancy or think that you can't run an ad in Facebook. That's one of the misnomers I hear from a lot of dealers. Oh, well, you're just not supposed to put very salesy ads in the news feed. That's, that was the case 3 or 4 years ago, but now our user base, and we take care of them first and foremost, well before the advertisers or money or anything else like that, have become used to and are okay with the fact that when you use media sources and television and everything else this way, you're going to get some ads. Those ads may as well be good. So just make sure that they are actually relevant to the business objective that you want. And we're working with all the partners, from website providers to agencies, to endemic web shopping portals to make sure that we can provide good quality creative on your behalf at scale if this is not something that you're doing internally. Here's an example of one, right? So this is a carousel unit. You guys are probably seeing this on your phone. It's just showing multiple cars that you can slide through side to side and then click through on one and narrow down. In this particular case, you've actually got some offers. So I'm going to talk about the evolution of our dynamic products before long, where you'll actually be able to leverage integrations from your tier 2 and tier 1 partners, where we're taking their incentive feeds and making them local and available to you. And so we'll get to that in a second. But, again, it's very plain and simple. This is the ad. Here's sort of the terms. I'll show you some of the disclaimer stuff that we're working on in a second. But this is what's amazing, because what you're effectively doing, if you think about the size of the screen, it's very, very small on a mobile phone. So I liken this to like bringing website elements onto Facebook and making sort of microsites here. One of the issues that we have run into is that a lot of dealership websites load slow, 10 seconds. Like, you're going to lose a lot of people if you have slow load time. So bringing a lot of those elements into the Facebook news feed will make sure that they actually load and you don't lose that customer who might be interested for something that, is really not anything you can control. So, again, a good ad that we really like. Here's some other things that we're starting to see. So we're turning our lead ads, which is this one on the left here for this oil change. It says contact us. We're actually building those now where you can set an appointment. So instead of just being something that generates someone's email address that you're going to call, it actually gives you the time that they want to come in, what they're interested in for a test drive or a service appointment. Get directions, help shows where the store is. Call now would be really great. If everybody called, you could get them right on the phone and get to it. So we've made that available. And then send message. Messaging, again, is going to be really huge. We've partnered with a lot of the messaging providers. So, the Active Engage, the Contacted ones, there's several other ones out there that manage a lot of dealership, Gabagoo, the ones that manage dealership chat. We're working with them to make sure they're integrated with Messenger, not just in your chat that's on your dealership site. So that is starting to actually, take root, and we've seen it over the past months, good traction. If you're managing your own messages, that's also fine too. As long as you're responsive, and that we think will be the more pervasive way that dealerships will be contacted in the near future. So that was Facebook 101, and it took a long time, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands exactly what's capable of, what you're capable of on Facebook, because if you're not doing those things that I just talked about, none of the stuff that I'm about to talk about now is really, relevant. You need to block and tackle and start seeing the value of this, and then you can start to move into more advanced and technical things that might require either more investment on your time or a partner to help out. So our vision for automotive product is that everything is built for scale. When you're a relatively small team here, and people may think we have a gazillion employees working on auto, we do not. We have to build products that scale and that are the best performing for our customers, and that's why we set up the products that scale for our machines, that are serving these ads to actually learn. So if people are engaging with certain types of products or certain types of cars with certain types of characteristics, we want to be able to learn that so that the next ad that person gets from you is actually, smarter and can find more people like that. We want to make it turnkey and coordinated across tiers. One of the biggest things that we're getting from CMOs of car manufacturers is, I need you to help me help my dealers get this on board. And that means they want to co-op this stuff, but they also want to be able to measure it. They want to show that the things they're doing at the brand level are actually helping you at the dealership level, and the things that you're doing at the dealership level are actually driving sales for them. And so making it coordinated is a big part of my job and a big focus for 2018. We want to make it measurable. So again, we could show that if you ran a brand campaign, Mr. and Mrs. OEM, you actually drove very good value down at tier 2 and tier 3. So we have the ability, because people are authenticated, to do very, very sophisticated measurement, which we'll start publishing more and more, and then leverage the integrations with these manufacturers as well as third-party providers to make this to where it's very, very simple for you to activate, because all car dealerships, are great marketers. And in fact, they rank just behind real estate agents as the most savvy digital marketers out there. But you also have to run a business, and there's a lot going on there. So making ways that we can integrate with the stuff that you're already doing should make this much simpler. And so these are sort of the guiding principles that we have for next year. I want to talk a little bit about dynamic ads. So dynamic ads for automotive, we've actually had a version that, some companies have hacked over time. I heard CarGurus actually get a shout out there. They have been one of our best partners in this. But taking a catalog of inventory and putting it into Facebook gives you the ability to automate that creative, whether it's from retargeting the people who looked at a car. We actually have your catalog. We can show them that car and other cars like it, down to things like trim and color and mileage and price. And then we can go and find those customers through the targeting segments of both the ones that visited your website, the people that look like them, the bulk audiences, and go and show those particular vehicles to all of those groups of people. And then we'll find out, and this is relatively new, and what the big announcement was that because we're getting structured data now, meaning that we're getting through this product feed everything down to the VIN and decoding all of that, we might understand that somebody looked at a Toyota Camry that had 10,000 miles and cost $10,000. Well, you might think we should just show them more Camrys, but the reality is if that's a used car, they may go look at a Honda Accord because it had 10,000 miles and cost $10,000. So setting the systems up to learn is a really big deal. And then that ultimately ends up with a product that is working extremely well. Here's how it might look, right? So you've got dynamic, name at the top, dynamic text that's talking about that specific car. The images are all dynamic, as I just explained. The description and the links are all dynamic. So this is a way that you can just sort of automate all the things that are occurring on a website with the benefit of a fast loading and intent-driven signal that's going on at Facebook, and bring a lot of these elements into the newsfeed. We ran this with Dealer.com, and Dealer.com sells a lot of media beyond Facebook, and what they found was we were driving significantly lower cost per detail page views than some of the other display that they were competing against. We had a lower cost per click, and we were able to generate 45,000 detail page views. So this stuff is working. It's working well. It's working for individual dealers. It's working for partners who are distributing big systems like our dynamic ads product. One of the things that will be coming soon, if you guys have ever seen this, and these are some retail examples because we don't even have mock-ups for auto, is what we're calling collection. So instead of just that carousel of 4 or 5 cars that live and you scroll side to side, we're actually going to allow the construction of collections where you might have a video at the top that shows your dealership, or that has somebody from your dealership talking about the merits of it, along with inventory on the bottom that they can directly click to, or particular offers, or a map to the dealership. So we're going to be rolling this out as an evolution of the dynamic ads product for listings, which you just recently saw, to make these available for construction by third-party partners.
Any idea how soon that will come out?
I'm thinking this is probably a Q2 2018 product. Most of them will be. We're down the road. The technology is there to do it. It's simply getting them into these types of interfaces. So this will be a really big one, and I think allow you to have multiple objectives. One of the issues I have, sort of with just a lead generation ad on its own is, yes, somebody will fill that out and you'll get to talk to them, but there's no sort of qualification beyond the targeting that this person was interested in some of this stuff. And they fill it out, and maybe it's hard to get in touch with them. When you have these multimedia type things living in feed, you can do different things. Like getting somebody to watch a video has value, but it also has value to get them to find the map of your dealership. So having more points to understand where they are in that funnel, higher up on the video side, lower in the map to the dealership side, will help our systems learn, and also just give more of that microsite type feeling to the internal feed.
Great.
The next evolution of this, which is extremely complicated, but is keeping me up at night and something I'm living and breathing all day, and I love it, and I think it's going to be completely game-changing, is the offers product. And so what we're doing, again, is working with getting incentive feeds and putting those in a system where they would actually give you the ability to construct ads based on the incentives that are in your area, and deliver those to people who, again, we've identified from all these other ways that are in market for a car. And then over time, start to learn, what is it that's most important to this person? Was it the APR, the cashback, the lease offer that they engaged with that made them so excited about this? And this, I think, again, is game changing. It's a really good tier 2 product, so you may benefit from it out of the gate, say, Q2 of next year, with it being done on your behalf by tier 1.5 or 2. But over time, what we then begin to do is attach the offers to the actual inventories of that original dynamic ad product. So somebody looks at a new car on the lot, you can not only retarget them with a picture of that car and all the details, but the appropriate incentive that's attached to it. So this one's going to be game changing. Here's how some of those ads could actually look, right? So we're providing you the ability to put this stuff here where, you've got text overlay that's, giving you a deal in this case, not so much an incentive, but, an actual amount that you would spend per month on that car. Here's some behind the scenes stuff. Look, we know in order for you to do an incentive, you actually have to have a disclaimer in there. It's FTC. We could get in trouble. You could get in trouble. So we're going through the process of making a very elegant way that you can get the disclaimer into the ad itself. The rules in many cases are they need to be one click off of the ad. If you look at a banner ad, sometimes they have rollover. In mobile, it's tough, right? I mean, you could click through and go to the mobile website. We want to make that native to Facebook. So we've got designers, legal people, everybody sort of looking at like, how would you actually do this? And we've got some work to do, but just to note that disclaimers are a big part of being able to actually pull off the product that I'm so excited about. You also probably heard about Marketplace. It was a really, really big launch. And to be totally transparent, I was behind a lot of the the strategy on this product, like how are we going to do this? A little history on how it started. So in groups, so we have Facebook groups. You guys are probably a part of some, whether it's your community or church or Little League team, whatever it is. And what was happening is one of the most pervasive things that was going on in those groups was the buying and selling of cars. But they were doing it in a way where they'd literally just make a post that says, hey, I've got this car, here's a picture of it, and here's what it costs. There was no structured way to organize this. So out of that, we built Marketplace for, Marketplace was, obviously built across lots of different products, but we made it for automotive. And what we did was we started taking in structured data. It's actually the same data schema that we're using for the dynamic ads. So if you're running dynamic ads through a partner, you actually could very easily then just extend that into Marketplace. Once you click through to an ad, you'll see something that looks a lot like how do I get there? Who's the dealership? You'll notice Edmunds is here. I'll just deal with upfront that right now we built this product in 0 to 4 months. It's called 0 to 1 in the product development world. We did it in 4 months, which is an insane timeline. And in order to start testing and get some volume of what it is that we needed to get into the system, we partnered with the places that have the most inventory that you're already doing business with. So the Edmunds of the world, I believe CarGurus is involved. Some of these larger portals and shopping sites that allowed us to get some scale so that we understand what does it look like if a dealer were to put their own inventory in here and give you a way that if you're already running dynamic ads with one of these partners, again, they're selling it, they have really good data, as well as your website providers, that you're able to easily just extend that dynamic ads product into Marketplace. So you're extending from a subscription on their website to dynamic ads on Facebook to Marketplace on Facebook. And the good thing here too is I think we're starting to also test how open are customers to dealing with a process on Messenger. So the only way you can contact the dealership on Marketplace is through Messenger. That is either direct to the dealership or through the providers of messaging management services that I had mentioned earlier. And what we're finding is that Messenger is a very good way for them to deal with it, and they're enjoying the back and forth and the on my terms use of Messenger. What is funny is we see a lot of dealers respond going, hey, what's your phone number? Because they immediately want to get them on the phone. But we believe at Facebook that we are not going to force people to do what we want them to do. They want to engage with brands and other people in their own way, and so we want to give them all the options to do that. So the next frontier, and I'll be close to wrapping up so we can get to Q&A. If you think about what happened before, there was pre-digital, shaking hands, doors opening up, you're trying to sell a car there on the lot. The internet came around, started doing a lot more research, a lot less people going to the dealership, but still quite a few. Then mobile came along. I already spoke to the effect that it had. And then when you get to the applications part, mobile really exploded, thanks to Google and Apple. But what would actually be next after the App Store? The answer is actually that by 2018, 2 billion people around the world will be using messaging. I just showed the stats that WhatsApp and Messenger are 1.2 billion apiece. You'll actually find that 6 out of the 10 most globally downloaded apps are messaging apps. If you look what's going on in Southeast Asia, they're using apps to do everything from check their bank balance, to get their boarding pass for a plane, to call a car, to order food. And if you want to think about messaging in a way that, is not just plain and simple sending information back and forth, it's actually going to replace mobile web browsers. It gives us the utility that we always wanted from the internet. It avoids a lot of the slow load times that we see on mobile. And a messenger chatbot, if you will, type of store, you could see a lot like the Apple, App Store of today. We think this is going to be really big. It's the place where artificial intelligence will start to seep in, and you're seeing lots of companies working on that as well. Here's an example of how that actually might work. So, Downtown Mini here, they send a note out that says, hey, your car's due for service, because they've already had an engagement with this particular person, Ryan, with their brand. So that's one thing to note. You have to have a messenger engagement before you can send them proactive messages. So you certainly want to start to try to get as many of those messenger engagements coming to you from click-to-message ads in the newsfeed for your customers. But you could see, there you have the opportunity to actually say, here's what we want to do as far as time to bring my car in. They'll let you know then at that point in time, hey, your car is actually ready to go. You could potentially pay through it. We've got a payments platform. And then, lastly, here's your invoice, and you're going through and you're clicking pay. So I think Messenger is huge for a longer sales cycle like you see in buying a car. It's also really huge for communicating with your customers. And in some cases, we're thinking about how could we actually get this into a vehicle, right? I mean, you would be tied to all the people that you know. You'd be tied to all the businesses that you know. You could do voice to text so that it was actually safe. So Messenger has a place throughout the entire process of researching a car, buying a car, and then owning a car. So we're getting close to done here. I just want to wrap up by saying, again, thank you for having me here. Objects in the mirror are closer than they appear, which means that this is all happening extremely fast. It's happening fast for us. It's happening fast for every technology company. I know it's happening fast for you all. But the one thing that's not going to change is that mobile is taking over the world, that being able to find people across their devices is very important. Being able to target them and eliminate waste and know what success looks like is very important. And you have the opportunity to start doing that today, rather than just sort of sit around and say, I've got to, we've got to figure this mobile thing out. Leverage the companies that are already doing quite well, and you'll have an install base of people that are already there. You don't have to worry about building your own app. And it's coming pretty quickly. So thank you.
Wow. I don't know about you people, but my head is spinning from all of that amazingness. Oh my goodness, Philip, take a drink. And let me launch that poll question, which I see is on the next slide. Audience, we're going to launch this poll question. And we really hope you get involved with this poll question. It's the only thing that Philip wanted to know from all of you today. He wants to know, are you currently doing any Facebook advertising? Please select one of the following answers. Yes, and it's working great for us. Always want to know more about that. Yes, but we're unsure of the results or how to measure the ROI. Not yet, but we're thinking about it. It looks like maybe we should be doing some Facebook advertising. You know what? We've never been presented with Facebook advertising. Now that we've seen all this, we're definitely going to look into it. Or no, you know what? I think we need some more convincing on whether Facebook advertising is the right move for us. Once we get a majority of the votes in, we're going to close this poll and share the results. And then we're going to get to a giveaway, and then we're going to get to your Q&A. And oh my gosh, Philip, we have so many questions that came in from the audience for you today. So we're going to try and get to those as quickly as we can. All right, audience, thank you so much for your votes. We really appreciate it. We're going to close this poll now. Almost everyone has voted. And let's share these results with everyone. Philip, here you go. Check this out. Are you currently doing any Facebook advertising? Well, almost half of today's audience, 49%, said yes, and it's working great for us, and they are always looking for more information about great Facebook advertising opportunities. 40% of today's audience said yes, but they're unsure of the results on how to measure the ROI. That's very interesting, 40%. 10% of today's audience say not yet, but they're thinking about it, and it looks like we should. And only 1% of today's audience says that they've never been presented with Facebook advertising options, and now they're looking into it. All right, Philip, I hope that answered your question. Did you have any comments about that?
No, it's actually, I'm happy about this, that most people have been presented with it, that it potentially was presented properly in a way that was tied to business results, and that, there's not many people saying they need more convincing. I think we can probably handle some of the ROI stuff in Q&A, which, always comes up. So happy to take on any questions there as well.
That would be great. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, audience, I can't imagine that there's anyone out there who still hasn't gotten in a question yet, because I'm seeing all the amazing questions that have come in so far today for a first-time Dealer on Webinar presenter, Philip Rather. But if you haven't gotten in your question yet, now is the time to do it. Let's do this. Get that question in.
Hey, Eliana, I'm having trouble going to the next slide. It's stuck.
You are? Okay.
Did the poll.
No, that's okay. Hover your mouse. Yeah, it's probably that thing on the bottom. Hover your mouse over the bottom left and see if those.
Oh, gosh.
Can you get rid of that toolbar at the bottom?
I'm trying. No.
It doesn't want to go away. Bottom left of that are some of the fail safes. Can you hover your mouse to the left of the toolbar?
There we go.
Ooh, okay. Hey, there we go.
Here today.
We're good. We're doing really good. All right, so get those questions in, and let's go to the next slide. And if you could, let's put our webcams on. So if you heard it earlier today, hopefully you were here earlier today, audience. I announced that our good friends over at Facebook, they're giving away an awesome prize on today's webinar. One lucky webinar attendee is going to win a Facebook swag bag filled with all kinds of Facebook awesomeness. It includes a Yeti tumbler, which, if you know, is this amazing thing. It costs a few ducats, let's say. It's going to be t-shirts and all kinds of great stuff in there. I really wish I could win this prize, but I can't. I'm not eligible. But you are. This sweet, sweet prize is valued at over $200. All you have to do is be the first person to answer the giveaway question, and it's all yours. Of course, if I say your name, I'm going to need you to write in real fast and tell us the name of your dealership. And don't forget to send me your mailing address, because this prize is coming to you directly from our friends at Facebook. All right, everyone, here we go. Good luck. This is not an easy question, so I hope you took great notes. Earlier in the presentation, Philip showed Facebook research that discussed the likelihood of different audiences buying a car. Which two audiences were 2 times more likely to buy a car? So we're looking for 2 different kinds of audiences. I need them both on the same line to be, I know a lot of folks are writing in right now. Let's see, I'm gonna come over here. Oh my goodness, the list of people writing in is amazing. Hold on, let me scroll up and see if anyone got the right answer. No. Oh, Steve Kaiser, you are the first one to write in the correct 2 responses. Congratulations, Steve Kaiser. I don't know where you're from, but I'd love to know. Steve Kaiser, congratulations. You were the first person to write in Polk audiences and Facebook lookalikes. Congratulations, Steve Kaiser.
Good job, Steve.
Quite sure that I have never had you as a winner before on a Dealer on Webinar, so congratulations. And I am, Steve Kaiser is from Ray Skillman West Side Auto Mall in Indianapolis. Congratulations, Steve Kaiser. You are a winner. Don't forget to send in your mailing address. This prize is going to come to you directly from our good friends over at Facebook. Now, audience, unless your name is Steve Kaiser, and mine isn't either, then we didn't win this prize today, and it was an awfully cool prize. But you know what? Come on back to another Dealer on Webinar, and that might be your lucky day to win a cool prize on a Dealer on Webinar. But for right now, we're going to congratulate Steve Kaiser from Ray Skillman Westside Auto Mall in Indianapolis. And of course, we got to thank our good friends over at Facebook for their incredible generosity. Thank you so much. All right, audience, we're going to get to your questions right now, of which we have many. So, my dear friend, Philip, I'm going to ask you to go through these as quickly as you can so we can get to as many of them as we can, all right?
Sounds good.
Here we go. First question came in nice and early from Daniel. Daniel says, are there any plans to update the Facebook Blueprint Automotive course in 2018? Can we also have an official Facebook Automotive group, similar to how Facebook 360 has a public group that is managed and moderated directly by a team at Facebook?
Yeah, absolutely. On the Blueprint part, you know, we're not a huge team, but we've just gone through the whole 2018 planning process of getting more people, both on my team, as well as cross-functional support in marketing and engineering that can, you know, build certain types of content hubs. So we're working on a content hub where you could actually go and find all sorts of different content, decks that we use, case studies, all of those types of things that's automotive specific. We're going to work on Blueprint so that it is up to date with everything's, all of the products that are relevant right now in ways that you would actually do that. And then the group idea is actually really, really good. Typically we have not had any Facebook run groups for large industries. We do have them like working groups with clients. As you know, there's a product called Facebook Workplace, which is like a Slack type of platform that uses a lot of the same functionality that we use to manage groups. So I'm going to do some digging on that. You can expect between those three things that you're going to end up with a way to interface, have dialogue, get information, and all sorts of collateral for Facebook marketing specific to automotive.
Wow, that's a great answer. Okay, Daniel, thank you so much for your great question. We hope we helped you out. Okay, next question comes in from Joey. How you doing, Joey? Joey says, with Facebook offline events, will there be better functionality for attributing Facebook views, engagement with offline purchases, especially for longer paths to purchase?
It's a great point. Another thing that I think about a lot, one of the difficulties, if you're looking at looking at the automotive industry in its entirety, is that there's so many different CRM systems. It's hard to get into the DMS systems. One-off, integrations with each individual dealer is hard for us to scale. But we are putting a ton of effort here at Facebook into offline in general. As you can imagine, the things that accelerated our growth very early on were more the online stuff, right? They're very easy to attribute, things like e-commerce or booking, tickets or travel or things like that. But the world of, visiting a fast food restaurant, going to a car dealership, that's actually all under our purview here on the team that I work on, and we're thinking really, really hard about it. It's less about whether it's possible and more about how you get it to market. And because we're dealing with 20,000 car dealers, 1,100 tier 2 regions, 20 something OEMs, doing that in a way that is easy for everybody, and it's sort of a big challenge. But that's why I get up and every day and work on automotive, is not because I've been doing automotive my whole life. I actually only have 5 years of experience in working in auto, but to solve the really, really messy problems around how do I know if my media worked for something that you never buy and you pay for offline. I think another thing there too will be you're starting to see some companies coming out with like online desking, right? So like getting pre-approved for finance before you come in and handling some of those things. So I think that'll give us more of those online attributes to whether the car was actually purchased and tied back to Facebook media. But ultimately, we need to get into the CRMs, not only for measurement, but also for give you easily the ability to go in and find, customers from your DMS who might be in equity or who, need an oil change.
That's awesome. By the way, first of all, thank you, Joey, so much. I love your questions. You always have great questions. Matt wrote in, a Facebook group would be so awesome. So I just want to let you know that, Philip. Okay, next question comes in from David Sharp. He says, I'm noticing that many of the stats that Philip is giving are from a year or more ago. Are they still the same, or have they grown even bigger since then?
Yeah, that's right. And, very astute observation. One of the things here that we've also requested over the past couple of years and have gotten good, financing for or funding for here internally is to be able to start talking about these types of things up to date and over time. And as you noticed, I mean, there's no way the trends which I was talking about are going to go in another direction from a year or 2 years ago. They're actually going to make the case even more compelling. One of the things that you will see from us, and I believe it'll probably be around May, I would guess, of next year, sometime in Q2, we of course, we're going as fast as we can, but, the first quarter is often a lot of the setup for the rest of the year, but right. is to release some path to purchase study that we've done with lots of different parties. We've done it across devices. This is not just going to say simply like, hey, people are, using this many devices while they shop for a car. I think we all know that they're all over the place and that it takes some time. We want to specifically say this is Facebook's role and the things that were done on Facebook from a media perspective that actually accelerated or, just solidified that somebody was going to buy a car. So expect a lot more research from us. There's a lot more budget. I think the story is also better on our side now. We know where our role is in the process and in all the business results. So astute observation, and yeah, to confirm, I think it would only make the story that much more compelling, but something that I think Facebook owes the automotive community now that we're really out there and showing that, hey, this is not people just messing around on a social network. We're actually driving a lot of business results. So good question, and noted.
Thank you very much. All right, Sharpie, thank you so much. All right, next question is from Nick. Nick says, hi, Philip. Trust is so key in the automotive world today. Dealers still have a bad reputation for being shady. Aside from online reviews and customer reviews videos, is there any way to build trust with fans on Facebook?
You know, I think the way that I would look at fans would be don't build a fan base on Facebook with the idea that you're going to be able to publish to them and get in their news feed. There's a chart that wasn't in here that shows kind of one flat line. If you think about, you know, an X and Y axis, and on that actual chart grid, there's a flat line that shows the amount of space in news feed. And then there's another line showing the amount of content that's trying to get in newsfeed, and that one's up and to the right. So the you know, the long and short there is that lots of content trying to get into a confined space, which is why we tell dealers, don't go out there and generate a bunch of fans and then publish to them, because you're competing against news that they read every day, right? And our algorithms are not going to you know, put up in someone's feed something about a dealership that they haven't visited in years that's not relevant to their day-to-day life. You're going to be competing against TechCrunch and Business Insider and, you know, Forbes and whatever those media sources who are daily sources of news. So now that said, there is a value to fans. If you have a fan base, by serving ads to friends of those fans, there's an implicit endorsement in that ad. And we've actually found that when someone sees an ad that has their friend's name in it, that says, you know, at the top of it, you know, Philip likes so-and-so dealership, that they are 2 times more likely to remember the ad, 4 times more likely to purchase. There's all sorts of lift that you get by running ads to your friends or to friends of friends. And so I think there's a strategy there. We're also working, I mean, we have reviews on Facebook, and one of the biggest misses, I think, here, but in the laundry list of opportunities and things that we have to build, you know, things just have to get built when they get built. Right. One of them was that reviews is just critical. And you know, my real, like, the fire that's in me is to help solve local for Facebook with local businesses, and reviews are just imperative to all of that. So I think what you will start to see is reviews making their way into post or potentially in advertisements, or when people are doing reviews, those getting some distribution to their friends. So we'll get more and more involved in that. I don't want to call it reputation management, but more of the proactive outreach of good things that are being said about your business. And you're right. It's, you know, there still is a lot of, you know, people do not want to necessarily deal with dealerships all the time. And I think that, you know, also goes to something around, like, you know, what are you doing in your dealership to make that experience as painless and enjoyable as possible? I just recently bought a car a couple weeks ago, and everything was done before I got there. When I got there, they're giving me coffee. It was a wonderful experience. And I felt like, you know, that sort of uncertainty back and forth with regards to the price stuff had been handled. So it was really more of a function of doing that. So yes, on reviews, it's a big focus of mine, and one that I'm trying to get into the product roadmap as fast as possible.
Thank you so much. Great question, Nick. All right, so many questions left, so we got to try and power through these as quickly as possible. Jason has the next question. He says, when creating an ad, how do I use view tags? I feel like by not using them, that I'm missing out on something important.
Yeah, view tags is tough. It depends on what you're trying to do. For instance, we do not allow view tags on certain custom audiences because of there's some technical things that would actually put some data at risk. And so many of the view tag things that we've done have been for the benefit of those of the data being used. Yeah, so I think that view tags is an evolving process. We actually purchased a company called Atlas that Microsoft used to own, thinking about how do we provide something that gives you, you know, multi-channel, cross-platform type of a view into media. Very high priority, but there are some limitations today because we're not sort of like an open ad network. There's ways inside of Facebook where you can understand, you know, attribution by, I want to, you know, give a 28-day window to somebody who has viewed an ad on Facebook, and then look at the conversion downstream for that on Facebook. As it stands today, it's relatively siloed. And again, that's for, security of data. And we're actively working on how to make this not just a siloed Facebook thing, even though you could value your Facebook media doing it that way, but more of a broader deal. Where does Facebook play in the overall media mix that you're using?
Thank you. Jason, great question. All right, next one comes in from Kayla. She says, how does Facebook recommend that car dealers segment and manage audiences and ad messaging / creative with the overlapping data that you've mentioned? The example of a mother who just became an in-market buyer. How do you create those audiences? And then how do you know which audiences to choose?
Good
I
question.
feel like that could be an entire webinar topic.
It could. Hey, chalk it up for the next one that somebody over here will do for you. So I think there's a couple of ways that you should look at this. One is that you've got, the Polk data that's available through our user interface, and so you can go through and find people who are in market for all the way down to, from segments all the way down to, makes and models, and that actually has not that much overlap with either shopping site audiences. So we've done some analysis there that shows that some shopping sites and compared to Polk may only have a 10% overlap. So not too much with regards to using some of that. You, of course, have your own pixel-based audiences, which are going to be the people that have visited your website and potentially may be filled, that funnel may have been filled by some of the Polk stuff that you're running. So you're going to have some overlap there, but what you're doing is basically taking a big group of potential customers, narrowing it down to a smaller group who've showed some intent, and then using our lookalikes to go and find more people who look like them and have some intent. So there could be some overlap in these types of things, but I don't think that it's necessarily as much as you think it is. And going back to the comment I made about the minivan, one of the other things, again, why you need to not just look at the people who've taken action that makes people buy a car, and you guys know this better than I do, but the research plays it out, is that it's life events. I got a new job. I had a baby. I bought a house. Those are just as correlated to purchasing a car as anything that they're doing online. So I think you've got a bunch of things to work for that, in fact, don't have that much overlap, and in unison could probably produce some really incredible results. Over time, we'll start to help by building tools that allow for deduplication on a better level than we currently do, as well as optimization within those types of sets to say, we're going to have some overlap here. That, in fact, is a good thing because we're taking different signals. Let's find that overlap and really focus on those groups.
Yeah, you're doing so good on these questions, by the way. Kayla, thank you so much. Great question. Okay, now this is an interesting question. And again, this could be an entire webinar topic right here. Morgan writes in, how do you tell how many vehicles were sold directly correlating to a specific campaign? I know that there's a lot of dealers out there that have trouble really figuring out the ROI on certain campaigns, or even figuring out if they sold any cars from the money that they've invested on Facebook advertising. And I know that there's a way to figure it out, but a lot of dealers don't know how to do that. So very briefly, could you tell him that there is a way to do that?
So it's tough. So the way I would look at this is compare it to everything else. And this comes into a measurement conversation around last click model, right? Again, search is really, really great, but why did somebody search for you? There was all stuff that happened before they searched for a particular brand. So the brand is building interest in that from the dealership and so on. And you just can't give credit to the last thing that someone did when they're buying a $40,000 car offline once every 7 years. It just doesn't make a ton of sense, right? So I wouldn't look at it as like something that's capable really anywhere today outside of leads and Messenger, which again is a last click model. Like they filled out a lead, they started a Messenger chat with me, they had a phone call. Those are ways that you could say they saw an ad.
Great job.
They contacted me through that ad. And therefore, we know that ad
conference call scheduled for
but there might have been
10:30,
stuff that
so
happened
we're on the
before
same page.
Facebook. You're just giving all the credit to Facebook at that point when there was probably lots of other stuff that happened. So the multi-touch attribution question, right now you can show that you showed ads to people and then some of those people bought cars. what we're doing at a bigger level, and it's really, really hard to do. So for the dealer groups out there that are, 20 or 30 stores, you probably are in a statistically significant range, but we track lift. What lift is basically this group of people saw some ads on Facebook, this group of people did not see ads. So match back to the CRM, how many more people bought cars that were in the I saw Facebook ad versus that did not. You'll find an amount of lift. It'll actually give you the number of incremental cars sold, and then you can figure out the profit per car. The issue is that at an individual dealer level, it's not statistically significant, so we can't run lift analysis. We do it all the time at the tier 1 level,
Morgan did
tier 2
exactly
level,
what was asked
with the
of her.
AutoNations of the world, where you have lots and lots of data.
Raise and promotion.
It's just tough to show lift at a dealership level, so we're working on
Junior
more
Executive
in that respect,
Manager
like,
of Data
how do you
Consulting.
Value
Is that better than
of
Assistant
media,
Manager
because
of
they saw
Junior
lots of
House?
things before they bought a car, and not just give all the credit to the last thing they did before they showed up.
I'm gonna go call my parents.
Thank you so much, Morgan. Great question. Okay, next one comes in from Monica. Monica says, if we have a custom audience, should we run an ad just with that audience? Does adding Facebook interests, demographics, etc. to that custom audience ad decrease the reach in the ad?
And they will be to you.
I think it comes down to what you are trying to do. So generally, we do not suggest decreasing the reach really, really low, because our system actually needs more people for it to go through and find the right people, if that makes any sense. So if you've got a list of 500 people and you said, I only want the males that are 25 to 30 years old, you're not going to have anything left. And
that's it.
Therefore, that objective that you have needs to be extremely important or specific. So I think it depends on what you're trying to do. Like, again, I don't think you're going to get any benefit from doing that for, an oil change. However, if you had 10,000 people in a CRM and you're like, I just want to find the ones that look like this because I'm going to show them a car that or I'm going to build custom creative for them, right? You want to segment out the creative by the people that you're serving it to. That's fine. It does cut down the size of the individual campaigns, but it doesn't cut down the size of the overall custom audience that you build. So in general, like if you're going to really narrow it down, it needs to be extremely important that it's just those people, or you need to be mapping creative and persona-based kind of creative and messaging to those people, at which point you would do that for the entire database, and you would just have different campaigns.
New breed of worker.
Great answer. Okay, Monica, thank you so much for that question. Okay, Kelly wants to know, is there a way that we can get more specific training on using the retargeting? Is there any Facebook magic place that they can find more information on that?
So we have a product wiki, and if you search for it online, and actually, Eliana, if we have all the names of the people on, we could send out some, kind of like a little link list of like, here's some good stuff to go and get you started. But yes,
So the
we have
conference
some
call
places
scheduled
where
for
we can
10:30.
send you online and understand. There's actually, you take it a step further, there's what's called a developer wiki, which is deep down into like, this is how the pixel work. It's even got code snippets. So depending on who's looking at it, you've got this is why in the basic, 1, 2, 3, 4. I actually had a slide in here that was kind of like, put the pixel on, do this, do this. And we pulled it because it was sort of tactical, and obviously there was a lot of slides in there, like 70 slides. So we can send that out afterwards. And also,
take that into consideration
a lot of times on the dynamic side, if you're going to be uploading a catalog, you may need some help with that, and that's okay. And that's why we've made it to where, there is a way to sort of self-serve this, but we also know you've got a lot of other things to do. It may be simpler to use your website provider, your shopping sites,
Morgan did exactly what was asked of her. Nothing more
to do that for you. So I think we could probably follow up with some online materials that would get you started. And then you'll have to determine based on the resources and expertise you have at the actual dealership that you would be able to figure that out and get some support with it. And then I guess lastly, we're going to update the Blueprint training modules, as I stated in an earlier question, which I think will help with not only like how to just basically use a pixel and do retargeting, but how you might want to think about that.
Did you know millennials can actually be exceptionally
creative? And I know you had said earlier that there was going to be this new training hub. When is that going to be up? And is that one of the things that's going to be included?
Sure. That's a normal thing.
So Blueprint's actually more of the training piece, and it just needs to be updated. What I mentioned about the hub was something your good friend Gabriella actually built, and now that she's on my team, that's going to be wonderful for her to be able to spearhead some of this. But a place where you can go in and it's an auto-specific type thing where, you can comment and you can see, it'll have a link to Blueprint, it'll have a link to the developers wiki, it'll have
millennials comprise
links to case studies
of the
and best
workforce.
practices
None of
and
them work,
potentially even
and their
blog
parents
posts.
supported them,
So what we're trying to do is take all these disparate
and
elements
China
that we
would
talked
take
about
over.
today, wikis
So
and blueprints and groups,
unfortunately,
and content and case studies, and put them in one place, which we would call a hub.
We want to fire them all too.
That I think will release September early release.
I think that sounds great. Okay, thank you so much. Now, just so you know, we are a half hour past our scheduled time, but we have so many great questions. I figure we'll go another 10 or 15 minutes and then close out the show. Is that all right with you, Philip?
Yeah, I've got a good 11 minutes right now, so that sounds where I'm thinking.
11 minutes, all right. All right, next question comes in from Nick. He says, hey, Philip, thumb-stopping creative. What qualifies? Are videos more thumb-stopping? A shocking photo? Can dealerships really create something captivating for Facebookers? And Philip, before you go there, I just want to tell Nick and everyone else out there, we actually had a wonderful webinar with Gabrielle Garrison from Facebook where all she talked about was great thumb-stopping creative, and you can find that webinar recording at dealeron.com/webinar, and then go to the bottom and click to go through our archives, and then you'll be able to find it. But Philip, really fast, thumb-stopping creative, is that a shocking photo? Is it a video?
It's actually simpler than that, I think. Using some of the tools that we have, you want to have something that's captivating, and a lot of times motion does that. So so video can be really important. So let's just deal with video. We'll deal with some tools, and then we'll deal with some third parties that might be able to help you out here. So the first on video is that you have to completely rethink the way that video is done on Facebook. You can't just repurpose a television ad. It doesn't work like that. You've got 3 seconds up front in a 15-second video to capture their attention. And so, normally, a lot of videos or commercials from brands to dealerships were like the kind of the shot comes, or the here's what you need to do comes later. You actually have to flip that completely and make the upfront value proposition immediate. The second part is that you have to presume that the video is does not have sound on. And what that means is that we've got subtitle functionality where it will actually just put the words at the bottom so people can read it, and they immediately get I don't have to interpret or infer what this video is trying to say because I'm literally reading what it's about. It's all front loaded. So there's some things around best practices for video that, again, I think you'll probably find in Gabrielle's deck. And I did a presentation on this at Digital Dealer earlier in the year. So I know it's a hot topic. Dealerships really struggle with how do they make their own video at scale. I think that's a problem with local businesses in general. So I'll get to that in a second. The other part is that we're building some tools where you might have static images, but we will build a little bit of functionality that makes them move, right? That may change the color of the car, or it spins it a little bit. Even that slight bit of motion that we have found actually makes a big difference. The issue for us right now, and why this is not already rolled out, is how do you make that available at scale for local businesses? We have a lot of the bigger customers who don't have the, this really wide scale sort of disparate nature to their industry, and they're using this and they're doing it for direct response and generating much better click-through rates and stopping the thumb. The last thing is that there are some companies out there that are starting to building video programmatically. So you might have for all 4 dealers instance, have like a stock middle part of the video, but on the front part, it's talking about the incentive specific to that region, and on the back part this is the dealership. So using programmatic technologies to construct video, I think is going to be something that you'll start to see us do. And then there's companies, there's one called VidMob, there's some VidMob, they're ex-Facebook people, and what they built was the ability for you to walk around and videotape anything that's going on in your dealership, and they take that raw footage, and for like $60 turn it into a video made for Facebook. And it's just like professional. So they do this by crowdsourcing video editors. They've got about 5,000 of them out there. They go and they take it and they add music to it and they cut it and sequence it. And it allows you to be very effective and get some of the footage that you would have at your dealership. They did this for me. They were in Austin. I said, go to this barbecue joint. 5 hours later, they had a video back with like smoke and Stevie Ray Vaughan in the background and something that was ready for prime time. So
that sounds awesome.
There's a lot of ways you can do it, but video is still, it's big on the platform. It's taking over mobile. but to actually deliver it at scale is a very big problem, one that I'm, personally working on.
Okay, all right. Nick, great question. Thank you so much, sir. Okay, next one comes in from Betsy. Betsy says, with the Call Now feature on lead ads, are those going to be trackable within Ads Manager? Good question, Betsy.
That might be a little tactical for me. I can certainly get the answer to that. I think so it said Call Now on lead ads. I will just presume that that means they click the call ad. Mm-hmm. And that, and so what we do is we generally work through the dealership's call tracking provider to be able to either come up with custom numbers or figure out a way to say this was a call from Facebook. I don't know what, honestly, in full transparency, I don't know what the other than you had this many clicks on the ad is available in Ads Manager today. But I think even if you were to be able to say this is how many calls I had, you're not tracking the actual call, like that particular call, and which one, to a specific number designated for Facebook turned into a sale. So I think we have a bigger problem to solve, which is just integrating with all of the call tracking systems so that we can provide that in a more scalable way, in a way that actually ties back to this source and those individual phone calls.
Okay, Betsy, thank you so much. That was a great question. All right, next one comes in from Carlos. He says, how can one coordinate a one-to-one evaluation with recommendations? Is there a place they can call where they can get a Facebook person who will tell them, yes, you should do this, no, you shouldn't?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not set up like that. So we have channels of support, right? And it's based on both market propensity for that customer. So obviously Procter & Gamble, who spends more media, I think $11 billion a year on media, has a team of 10 people over here. And the way that we have to actually go to the dealer community is more through scaled outreach and through partnerships. So we are very, very close to the majority of dealer agencies, like a Dealer On, who are coming to you and trying to provide this service to you, to make sure that they're doing everything that we, that are aligned with us, best practices, and in a way that's transparent to make sure you understand exactly how much media money is coming to us and so on. So right now, unfortunately, we just have to leverage the channel that we have. What I will say is that we are starting to think about things like call centers, concierge desks, even potentially chatbots, where you could get, some additional layer of scaled support. Being out in the market much more, I was talking to Eliana about we've added more people. We're going to be at more events. We're going to be doing more workshops. The one-to-one at an individual dealer level is just not a place that we're currently staffed to do. And so we'll figure out how to do that. But again, we're trying to solve a problem for 20,000 car dealers. We have to do it in the most scalable way until we get enough activity where you've got car dealers spending on their own substantial amount of money that we could actually staff an individual person against it.
Okay, a couple more questions, then we're going to have to close out the show. Carlos, thank you so much for that question. All right, next one comes in. Well, actually, we had a number of people who asked the same question. I'll just do the one from Sharpie. He says, maybe this is a stupid question, but can a dealer do dynamic ads without having to utilize a vendor? He wasn't the only one who asked that question, by the way.
Yeah, and I believe the answer is yes. It's gonna take a little setup on your side. So historically, that answer was no, up until, if you go back and look at the press, which I believe was early December, if not late November. Oh, no, it was the week before Thanksgiving, because we did the interviews and we made it in Auto News and so on, and it was talking about dynamic ads for automotive. Really quick, we had taken a product that was made for retail. So yes, there's a physical location and inventory at that location, but it was for retail of anywhere, like J.Crew, whatever it was. And we hacked that product. So the early adopters of dynamic ads actually had to go in and re-engineer a product on their own from Facebook to make it work for auto. It grew like wildfire. It outperformed everything. That was the Dealer.com case study I showed you. What we announced in November was a more structured way to enter the data. So now, instead of going to have to hack it based on, hey, this is how our data is on the vendor side, now we've actually provided a construct where you can upload your ads on your own through a data schema that's mapped directly to ours. And the question that I can't answer for you today, which I think will be in the online documentation. So I would type in developer wiki Facebook dynamic ads for auto or something like that covers the scope of what you're looking for, because there's online documentation for dynamic ads specifically for automotive, and it talks about how you do that. If you look at that and have a tech person look at it and you say, you know what, we just don't have these capabilities, again, you've got a vendor to do it. If you can pull it off yourself, by all means do so. I think you probably have to set up some sort of, just the ability to export the inventory from your side and import it automatically through some type of server. I know we've got options to actually pull from your server based on what you designate. So once every 6 hours, once every day, once every week. As you all know, the inventory changes so frequently. It's not about could you upload a sheet that had the information it's how often are you able to do that through automation, and that either needs to happen through a partner or take a look at the online materials for developers and see if there's somebody there internally that can help you do that. And some sophisticated and dealers are looking at that too. So I totally appreciate anybody wanting to do that. It's just, are you set up to do it today and to continue to be able to support it long term?
Okay, 2 quick questions, super easy, and then we'll close out the show. First one comes in from Kelly. She says, can you recommend a bot for the Messenger app?
That stuff is really, really nascent. So right now at a dealership level, you see a couple of companies that are starting to do to build some chatbots. They're not actually using a lot of language processing. It's almost like a dynamic form. So you say, hey, I want to look at this Acura. The bot comes back and says, okay, here they are. You're like, how much do they cost? It's more of a decision tree type thing.
Right.
So I don't have any to recommend. Even the OEMs are just starting to build artificial intelligent bots. So super early. What I would focus on now is those customers that are engaging with your brand or your dealership through Messenger. Make sure you get back to them and are supporting the channel manually, as a lot of the automation and artificial intelligence plays it out over the next couple years.
All right, fair enough. Thank you so much for that question, Kelly. All right, last one for our friends up north. They say, Haley wrote in, we are a group of car dealerships in Ontario, Canada. We run dynamic ads directly on Facebook and are currently trying to find a way to join the marketplace to list our inventory. You said that the dynamic ads can be extended to marketplace. Has this option been enabled in Canada yet? And can we use this option without going through a third-party marketplace? Thank you.
Great question. I'm glad it's the last one because it's the one I expected, and it's the excitement around marketplace is unprecedented. I'm so happy about it. So right now, yes, the data schema that you are using to run ads is going to map to marketplace, but that does not mean that you can get into marketplace, and that's not just for Canada. That's for the United States. That is what we're working on, and in the first half of next year, I think you'll start to see the ability to sort of handle those things you're on and not have to use one of the few vendors that are currently doing it. I know it's a point of frustration for many of the agencies out there that want to provide that to you, and certainly for the dealerships themselves, they're looking at it as a big opportunity to get their inventory in a marketplace. If you look at it from our perspective, we built the product in 4 months. We had to fill it with as much inventory as we possibly could from as few sources as possible. Figure out what that means. What does the data look like? What reporting do we need to have? What interfaces for dealerships to upload? All of those different things. Are people actually using it? Are they buying cars? So that's why we limited it. It was not in any sort of partiality. If you look at a lot of the providers, they were the places where you could get all the inventory in one shot. So a Cars.com and Edmunds, a Car Gurus, like those, you can get a lot of stuff there, and they will always play a role in being able to extend the services they provide you on the marketplace. But we will make it to where individual dealers are able to do themselves over time, and have not done so because the product is literally a few months old and would probably cause us more problem and bugs than it wouldn't cause you, than give you value to your business. So stay tuned on that. It's very, very exciting. The early results are promising, and I think 2018 will be a big year for that.
Philip, I had high expectations about today's presentation with you. You did not disappoint. Thank you so much. You are unbelievable, and I hope it won't be long before I can get you back on this show to give out some more Facebook knowledge bombs all over the place. I still have a ton of questions that we didn't get to, but that only goes to the popularity of the information that you presented today and your level of expertise. Thank you so much for coming today. We really, really appreciate it. I also want to let the audience know that this after this webinar, you're going to get a short survey. So fill it out. It's only 3 short questions. We're really looking for your quality feedback. And we really want to know what you thought about today's presentation. And Philip, I didn't know if you had any last minute things that you wanted to say to the audience before we close out the show and let them go.
First of all, thank you for setting it up and being so professional in my preparation. This was run like a well-oiled machine until I couldn't change the slide, which
You
is bound to
did
happen.
good.
Yeah, but thank you to everybody who showed up. Your interest in Facebook, your desire to work with us is all taken, and these are the types of things where I can go back and I can take your survey results and I can say, look, the appetite is tremendous. Let us continue to build these products, and you have my word that we're trying to solve the problems for a whole industry, but each and every one of you matter. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And it looks like we came up with a lot of topics for future Facebook webinars, I feel like. So we'll definitely try and get those worked out and get them out to you, our valued audience. Now, by the way, yeah, Philip is just filled with knowledge, right? He's a smarty pants. Guess what? You can catch up with Philip at the upcoming NADA convention. He's going to be on a super panel with Peter Lito from Google, Chad Rumminger from Twitter, and it's going to be moderated by Phil Sura from UnityWorks. Dream team. It's going to be amazing. And for more information, you can check out nada.com. We hope to see you there. And by the way, we are ending 2017 with a bang. Invitations will be going out tomorrow for our last Dealer On webinar of 2017. It's going to be a doozy. It's going to show you the results of the Elise Kephart Experience case study. They will finally be revealed. That's right. We saved the best for last. Our final webinar of 2017 will leave you breathless. A few months ago, Elise Kephart of the Elise Kephart Experience worked as a remote BDC for 3 bell-to-bell shifts for a dealership to see what kind of real-world results she could get with her exclusive process. And the results, well, as the saying goes, they're real and they're incredible. Now, Elise is going to share the jaw-dropping findings of her 72-hour case study, the Elise Kephart Experience on Fire. The value of this unparalleled presentation can't be understated. Far beyond her incredible 30% plus internet close ratio, Elise will also reveal how you can achieve a 93% contact rate and an 85% appointment set rate. Attendees of this fascinating 1-hour webinar will also listen to conversations and voicemails with real customers, even the ones who wanted best price, and see how to use video email to get over 90% engagement. Now, if you're ready to see one of the auto industry's best and brightest in action, then don't you dare miss this mind-blowing presentation from Elise Kephart. Please only show up if you can handle this hour of awesomeness. Register now, and don't forget, Dealer On's weekly webinars are held Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, and 9 a.m. Pacific. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions regarding our webinars and our topics, well, we'd love to hear from you. My name is Eliana Raggio, and I'm everywhere online. Find me anywhere, or you know what? You can just email me directly at eliana@dealeron.com. Thank you all so very much for spending this time with us today, and I hope to see you all on another webinar in our continuing education series. Take care, everyone. Phil, I was going to stop the recording. There's no recording. Philip, thank you so much. You were awesome.
Yeah, you got it. I hope it turned out well.
Are you kidding? It was amazing. But listen, so many unanswered questions, and I know you're a busy guy, but I was wondering if maybe you had some team members that might be able to get to